Ethernet jack anywhere.
I know.
Have I ever told you how much?
It would
You know
truly
that
be the thing. I think you know how they have like little icons on a hotel, like does it have parking, does it have a pool, whatever. Obviously, internet's on there, but I actually want to know like Ethernet. Like, can I plug in? You probably do, but it's too complicated. Like, you have to
well,
probably the TV is like hooked into it, and then you start messing with that. You take down the whole network to your hotel, and then you can't watch TV, and everyone's angry. So,
so to that
what do
end,
you do?
now I'm here at VMware Explore,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've talked with a lot of networking people. But Matt Ray, I know you know networking. You're all in and out with that eastbound, southbound, whichever bound you got. You're all bounds.
I'm
And
bound.
I have tried multiple times for this podcast to use the Ethernet jack on the TVs, and it doesn't work. And
Does not work.
is that because like it
Oh,
doesn't like my MAC address or something? And
probably.
if so,
Yeah.
is there a way that I can capture the MAC address when I plug a TV into something and then spoof the MAC address on my laptop so I can use the
Oh,
Ethernet in
whew.
a hotel room? Is that
Okay, when
can
did you
some can
become a
someone send me
hacker?
can someone send me a Raspberry Pi that will do that for me? And hopefully it's just a box that I just plug my laptop Ethernet into, and then I plug that Ethernet somewhere, and it just solves the problem. That really what I would like is a device I can plug in that solves problems. If that's something, maybe.
I think I've seen that, or maybe that was in Hitchhiker's Guide. I don't know.
because it's almost like I feel if you stay at a Sheraton in the U.S., you're gonna get in-room Ethernet. I don't know about the Renaissance. I haven't run that, but if you go to I'm at a JW Marriott, but I feel like the JW Marriotts are like Ethernet. Don't know what you're
Hardly
talking
knew her.
about. Yeah.
But this
Yeah,
is
and
the
so
whole thing. This is the whole weird thing about the nicer the hotel you stay at, the more you have to pay for and the less you get. It's like that
yeah.
kind of thing, right? It's like,
So,
oh, the breakfast is $75.
Oh my God. I
You
had
know,
breakfast. It was like $60. What?
yeah, and
Like
then
that's
at a
crazy.
cheap hotel, it's like you can at least get maybe it's not great, but at least you can get some food. You're like, is this better? Is this really? Yes.
well,
And then
so
you know what
I
else
just
to add insult to injury, the lounge they have is closed. So and they didn't even offer to give me money. I mean,
or
like
like they're like, you know what? Just help yourself to your minibar.
yeah, no. The point
Ugh.
being that normally at a hotel of this, one of the reasons you come to a JW Marriott is you can go to the lounge and you can
Yeah,
get
yeah.
stuff. You can get stuff to eat there, right? And
Is this
but if
like
they
the
have it,
special lounge or the main lounge?
it's the the status lounge if you're
Oh,
platinum or
okay.
above.
Yeah, I don't care. I was gonna say now the lounge for the whole place. I was like, now that'd be
No,
brutal.
I mean my point is that you
Yeah.
could go up there and grab some breakfast.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
Like you
it's
go
Yeah,
up there
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
totally get it.
but then if the lounge is closed, then you got to go have the $70 breakfast, and it's like, well, what you should do, and in Marriott's favor, some hotels have done this. They'll be like, oh, the lounge is closed, so you can go down and get free breakfast, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it. But here, apparently in San Francisco, I don't know if it's union rules or what they got going on, but not an option. They just
I feel like that's
yep.
something all hotels could just add though. It's like just be reasonable with the breakfast. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm not saying it has to be free, but it can't be $25. Because I don't know, it just feels like there needs to be some middle ground with even the JW. It's like, yeah, I know it's a nice hotel. I know you have a great breakfast, but I'm here for work. I need to get out quick. I just need something fast.
Yeah.
Under a $10, maximum $10 breakfast, right?
That's where ordering off the menu is usually cheaper than the buffet, and it's probably going to give you what you actually want. But yeah, I just booked a bunch of family travel for the end of next month.
Oh, and
and
you got to get the free breakfast hotel.
well, yeah, that was actually
Yeah,
I was like,
that's a
oh,
major,
this hotel versus that hotel. I was like, I got a family of five breakfasts at $30 a breakfast is that's. But who caught me was we're staying on this little resort island. I found this great,
you're done.
Great,
You're done.
and I was like, oh,
breakfast right there.
This looks great. Oh, not only that, you have to pay $60 a person for the ferry there and back.
Oh,
I was like, that just blew out all my savings, right? I was like, oh, I got this great hotel rate, and it's like, not only I'm captive to, they've got 3 restaurants on the island, and plus the ferry. I was like, I'm gonna get screwed so hard.
Matt,
Well,
you need to
and
have
they
less
tell
children.
you can't bring your own alcohol, but
Matt, you need less children, or you need to stop bringing so many children on vacation. Isn't your oldest now in college? You're like, he's out. He's now on his own.
No,
He's 100% out.
Well, almost every time now, all my children qualify as adults. So all those savings
Doubly
are out the door
worse.
too.
Doubly
Yeah.
worse.
The airlines are
Yeah,
like, oh, 12, that's an adult.
what Big Hotel wants to tell you is that like you won't remember how much you spent. You'll just remember the memories. And I'm here to tell you, maybe I won't remember, but people in my family will remember for eternity. And they'll essentially be like, "Do you remember that time we had to pay $60 per person to go to the island?" Like
But even
those
if I
memories
think
will
it's one of
stick.
these things that's even when you can afford it, and frankly, we live in a privileged world. It's not going to kill anyone on this call. But it's just the act of like literally while you're experiencing it makes it more painful. Like while you're eating the breakfast, you're
Yeah.
like, I can't believe how
Well,
expensive this
I'm
is.
prepaid now, so I will have forgotten by the time I get there, right?
Well, this is my whole belief about
we're
like the
booked on the ferry.
all expense resort vacation is like the best mental break, at least for me, that I can humanly make. It's like you have one big fee, you pay it, and you get there, and it's just like everyone can do whatever they want. Get as many, chicken nuggets as you want, order as many drinks as you want, go get ice cream. It's just like it's done. Like I'm sure if you calculated, it wouldn't be as cost effective as paying per, but just the fact you're not like I'm not saddled with having to think about like we just ordered a hamburger and my son took one bite. It's like I don't like that's the kind of stuff where like
I'm mostly past those days.
it creates
Oh
frustration
my
in
gosh.
me. So
yeah. That hasn't happened in a while. My kids are good eaters now. Now the problem is like, the oldest is like, I'll take the spare ribs. I'm like, no, you won't, dude. Just because
exactly.
it's the most expensive thing and that sounds good,
I'll take the spare
get a burger.
ribs. Yeah.
Well, they always
Like,
get you. Kids are going to get you on one end or the other, right? It's either they're going to order something and take advantage of it, but then you're like, oh, that's expensive. Like sushi. Like my son loves sushi now. And it was like, man, this was a lot cheaper when you didn't eat, when you just ate like the edamame, right? When you just ate the edamame and we're like, this is gross. That was great. Now it's like you're eating it faster than I am. And I'm just,
he's like, now I can put away the sushi. It's like,
yeah, we got to hit the Chick-fil-A before we go to the sushi place with you, man. You need to get some fries in you, get a little Chick-fil-A and,
slow you down.
I think we've hit on a new diet now. There's one parental diet, which is stop eating the food your kids don't eat. Right, you don't need to clean their plates for them, which I think is very popular.
It's always so good though,
that,
especially the pizza.
But I think maybe this diet is you allocate the money to the child to buy the things, and then whatever money is left over, that is the money you can spend on a meal, and so you can end up with like an apple or something. And then if they don't eat all of that hamburger, you can eat the
So your kids are still young enough where they're not clearing it out. My kids will clear it out. So here's my
that's true.
older big eating pro tip is like order something that they won't eat and then start by eating their food. And that way, like there won't be any leftovers of their stuff and you'll have all the leftovers of the things you like. So we get pizzas, so we'll get like, hey, 3 pizzas and I'll get some fancy vegetarian thing. And there's always leftovers for me the next day.
Yeah. Well, we should get started here, but maybe I should start doing what the Dutch do, where they just pack a suitcase full of food to bring with them.
Sounds like work. All right, you good? No ads this week, so just we'll just go all the way through.
No ads.
Hey, Cote, somebody I used to work with was like, "Hey, is Cote at VMware?" I'm like, "Yeah, I sent you like the link," and they said, "Oh, I just saw him. I guess you're doing some live streaming." And he was like celebrity sighting. I was like, "Well, you can go say hi." He's like, no. So I was like, "There you go, Cote. You're an intimidating celebrity. You didn't even know it."
Well, you'll have to say hello to tell your friend I say hello. And
I did.
I
did. We'll put this in the after show, then he'll hear it, hopefully, and then he'll know we're talking about him. But I won't name him.
People can always come up and say hello to me if they have nice things to say.
That's true. Like you need to. Well, it's the whole like don't stay too long either, right? Like that someone said like when you meet people like don't stay too long. I was like, I think there's something to that.
That is a very mature social thing for people to know. I notice when people do that and don't do that. It's nice. That's good stuff. All right.
So what are we talking about today?
Topics? Are we good? Are like you ready to roll?
Yeah. I don't really know enough about. I don't know enough about the stuff we announced to really talk about it, but we'll talk about stuff. We'll
you don't even have to just take it off. I just wasn't sure if you. I don't know. You're there.
Yeah. I'll talk about the conference as a whole and briefly mention some things, but I got to go read more in depth. You know how I am. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But like I'll go.
I mean, the only thing I really read from it was that Register article That's like we can't talk about anything Broadcom. And we can't, and customers aren't really demanding VMware on ARM, you know, uh, and they barely talked about any of the other stuff. But
I like
I'm
when
sure
there's
the
a
other
tech
stuff is
reporter
fascinating.
when there's a tech reporter you've read so many years, like the questions they ask each time, just because like that's their deal, and they're always going to ask that. Yeah, they could be talking with like I don't know Salesforce and ask them when they're going to run on ARM.
Because that's their thing.
Yeah,
I
right.
bet they're
Speaking of
they're
ARM,
analysts like that. Especially on
oh,
like earnings calls.
oh, don't get me started.
Ugh.
Please.
All right, we're ready. Speaking, getting started. We're ready whenever you are now.
Well, I'm here in San Francisco. I realize I haven't been here in many years. I'm looking out on the lovely city. Got a view from the top of the JW Marriott. Now, first of all, I want to say, if you want to gussy up a brand, just put 2 letters in front of it. All of a sudden, you've got something fancy going on there. Now, the difference between a Marriott and a JW Marriott, I don't know. JW Marriotts are newer. I think that's we had a lot of extensive talk about Renaissances and things like that. I was at the Renaissance over the weekend in Austin. Sadly
Swans.
enough, Matt Ray, no swans. They do not have swans. However, I think the overall quality of the Renaissance in Austin exceeded my expectations based on the baseline of the Renaissance Dallas Richardson. I think it was Richardson, or maybe it was Plano. There are a lot of, what as some people would say, I am shitting you negatory. One night when I was up in Dallas, I was driving back to my hotel because I'd put Renaissance into the Google Maps, and I drove to the wrong Renaissance. I didn't realize that there are 3 to 4 Renaissances in the Plano, Dallas area. So
Oh,
after
I'm
that, I had
sure.
to double check each time that I went to the correct one. But yeah, I mean the atrium and the Austin one, I think that's the thing with the Renaissance, right? Is there's always an atrium. Maybe we covered this last week, but I think it's a good hotel, and you got a Trader Joe's across the street, so that's kind of fun. I went in. Is now Brandon, you probably know about this. One of the missions I was sent on, being here in the States, is to get the everything bagel seasoning. Now, is that
Yep.
a thing you've heard of?
I've definitely heard of it, but I don't eat a lot of bagels, and I don't necessarily know where you would get that other than at a bagel place. You just say, give me
We've
a
gotten
everything
that
It's
bagel.
before.
at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at Trader
Okay.
Joe's. I went and looked at HEB. I looked at I might have even gone to Whole Foods. And then I was like, you know what I should do? I should search for this on the internet. And then it comes
Yeah.
up and it's a total Trader Joe's thing. And you just go in there and
It,
sure
it
enough,
was
boom, right there.
Yeah. It was not on my radar, and my in-laws came and visited and brought some, and I was like, "Why did you bring this?" My wife's like, "I wanted that. I told them to bring us that from Trader Joe's," and I was just like, not even on my radar. I had no idea.
Is this a game changer, Matt Ray? Am I going to start like putting this on all of my food? Am I going to
Not
throw out
me.
the Old Bay and put this on it instead?
Oh, probably not. Probably not. I think you're talking apples and oranges for seasonings. But my question, Cote, my question is
Yes,
coming
yes.
in to the U.S., knowing that like you're not there all the time. Do you look at your hotel and try to find the nearest grocery store or pharmacy for the things that you can't get in Amsterdam? And you're like, I got to make a
Absolutely.
trip. Yeah,
I think the first 2 things I look up in order. Well, the first 3 things, I always make it 3. 1, grocery store. And I don't want one of these bodega style whatever. I want like a real grocery
a full
store.
on. Yeah, yeah.
So I want to know where a grocery store is, closest one to my hotel. Then I want to know where I forgot the second thing, so I'm moving on to the third. Then I want to
Pharmacy,
know
Target.
where yeah, you know what? I think a Target is what I'm interested in, right? A Target
Yeah.
or a Walmart. I want to know how close that is. And then the third thing is I love a Whole Foods. So I always want to know
Oh,
where a
yeah.
Whole Foods is, right? And the reason I love it is they're only available, I don't know, I found they're in London. So whenever I go to London, I know there's like I like the Whole Foods in Piccadilly, but there's another one that's pretty good that I went to recently. In fact, I think I like the new one. I forget what part of town it's in, a little more east. But it's just like, a Whole Foods is great. And it was very dismaying. Here I am in San Francisco. I'm staying, it's at the Moscone. Or I think if you were to pronounce that in Italian, it'd be Moscone. But I'm doing stuff at the Moscone, and Whole Foods are pretty far from it. You can't really just walk there. I'd have to get a car.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to take a car to go to Whole Foods. I'm not that fancy. like that I
I
needed
took a
for that.
lime in Austin to get to it.
Oh, I can't get on board with that. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. Is like, where's the grocery store? Like, I want to know
Hmm.
where a grocery store is
Yeah.
just so I can go hang out, get some
So
things.
yeah, I'm going to San Diego in like 2 weeks, and I already looked it up. I was like, oh, there's a Ralph's around the corner.
I think, and
So
I hadn't thought of this, but I think what you're making me realize, Matt Ray, is that when I book a hotel in the States, I'm going to first search for where the Whole Foods is and then find a Marriott around there and see if that kind of like
oh, there's a
lines
Trader
up.
Joe's like 6 blocks away. Sweet.
Now, see, I'm not a big because why I want to go to Whole Foods is because of the hot bar, cold bar
Oh,
thing,
I love
right?
it.
Like I'm not really. I mean, I like their groceries, but really, I'm not that big of a grocery buyer when I'm here in the States.
Yeah.
But I want to just be able to go there and just like have a buffet, just eat what's there, and
Not a European thing, not an Australian thing. Yeah.
yeah. That's what I want to. That's now I'm a little wistful and winsome. That right now to close out the expat thing, I have found that because I was back here in May and because my mother came for 3 months, she's still there. It wasn't really that many things that I needed to buy. In fact, I noticed myself. I kept running across things thinking I need to stock up on them. I was like, no, I've already got 4 jars of that back home or whatever. So I think I'm set. Like I don't need any clothes. I'm doing all right. But I got that everything bagel seasoning. So I think maybe what I could do is I could evolve the Dutch lunch, which is a slice of bread with a slice of cheese. What if I put the everything bagel seasoning between the cheese and the bread? I think this might be a cultural moment that I would introduce. So, anyways, I'm here at VMware Explore, and I think I have done 8 little 20-minute video interviews, most of them with our friend of the podcast, Alex Williams,
Oh
founder
yeah.
of the New Stack. And first of all, he's delightful to hang out with. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those video interviews with like they got like 8 people, probably 10 people in the crew, and the big cameras and lights. And wow, it's
Oh,
pretty amazing. Like it's a lot more than as I'm doing right now with a GoPro tripod and a lavalier microphone hooked into it, plugged into my laptop. I mean, I think I'm doing pretty good here, but they are doing much better.
you
And
left the crew back in Amsterdam.
yes. Yeah. I should have asked producer Mitch. I should have been like, "Hey, I got a podcast to record here. You got an Ethernet jack?" But I figured that would be in some way. I'm not really sure how, but it feels like it might be unethical to like use the corporate recording booth to record the personal podcast. I don't know. It's that that would actually be maybe for a conference a pretty good setup is to be like we have like podcast alley and it's just like freely available ethernet jacks, some plugs. All you got to do is schedule using it and you can come in here and whatever you want you can just sit here and do your podcast and
I think I've
we'll even
seen that
have like a
before.
soundproof booth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that would
know
be nice.
I've seen that somewhere. I don't remember which conference. Hopefully they have it at KubeCon.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, also the I haven't been. Is this true to a large conference in a long time? And I don't know if you remember this, but they are large conferences. There is a lot going on there. They got all the people checking your badges, and you got your meetings, and big expo floor with the carpets. It was great. I even got one of these like flashing light cubes, which you may remember these from the conference times. Which I think
So
I
useful.
used to always get these. You know what? You could actually get these for the batteries in them. That's probably the most valuable component is you have those flat
But then you
batteries.
just have like a drawer full of spare batteries that of things you've looted, and it's like, do you really
Yeah.
use those
So,
batteries?
Cote, give us a little flavor of just like the crowd size, because I know various conferences, some have come back like full attendance, some have come back like moderate. Like Visconti's a good one. I bet you a lot of people listening have been there. Like are we
Uh-huh.
at like full capacity, kind of like both halls filled up with vendor and keynote stuff? And when you go in the keynote, a lot of seats taken, a lot of empty seats. Like
Uh,
what are you seeing
well,
out on the
I
street?
think I think yesterday during one of the streams someone was doing, they said there's like over 9,000 people. I don't know. Don't as they say, don't quote me on that, but that's what I remember hearing someone say in a publicly broadcast stream. So there's a number I can use. And I feel like I feel like it felt dense. I didn't actually go to the keynote because I watched keynotes in my hotel room. Much better for that. You get it. It's like I am not a sports person, but I understand that it is a fun experience to watch sports in the stadium, but that is an entirely different experience, which is equally good to watch the sports at home on your giant TVs, or in your case, Brandon, on your 20 TVs or however many you have. And so I think, I always enjoy the hotel room, but yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of people here. I did hear that at KubeCon they were expecting what, 12, 15,000 people? So that's a lot of people.
What
Yeah.
about precautions and stuff? Like, is it like vaccine or like masks? Or like, are there specific rules in place this year, or is it just sort of just
I don't
kind of
think so. I
free
think
for all?
I think they had like, I don't know if this is us or Moscone or whatever, but there were some little stands with face masks that said something like mask wearing is strongly recommended, which maybe tell me if you see that everywhere, Brandon. I feel like I've encountered that kind of phrasing on this trip more than not, which is almost like it's in an odd way. For as strident as that phrase is, it feels like some kind of weird fence sitting, like putting my parent hat on. Like if I were to strongly recommend that my child not do something I would not want them they would be like, noted, and then just move on and do the thing.
That's like when your kids ask, can I have something? If you don't say no, it's yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man.
It's just, and then even when you say no, they're like, well, I'll go with small.
To switch to our weekly parenting advice moment and therapy, I have found myself still learning and struggling with that. So that's a good reminder. Like, oh, even worse.
Never ends.
As far as asking the other parent, so my son, of course, will want more time on his iPad, and he will call me while I am in California, right? Like, to ask for more time, and I'll have to be like, I am not there. I don't know what's going on. Like, why are you calling me instead of talking to your mother? And of course, and he still has that honesty where he'll be like, well, if I ask her, she'll say no. And but it's a little sad because that means that every time he calls me, I kind of don't answer the phone because I know, he's learning how to do it. He'll be like, so how's your day going? How are you? And then we'll talk a little bit, and then there'll be a little pause, and he'll say, can I have more time? Just an hour. And then it's the usual song and dance. And it's just unfortunate. But yeah, I've got to learn just to be like, nope, gotta go. Click. I don't think you tell me you've got more kids further along, Matt Ray. Can you hang up on your kid in a situation like that? What's the protocol?
I have hung up on my kids, and they get very, very upset, perturbed. They're like,
Aw.
how dare you? And because sometimes it's like, they have some question, I'm on a call or something, and I'll hop off and like, the answer is no, and I got to get back to my call. Click, and they're like, but I wanted to argue for 5 minutes. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't get that. And then the other day, I accidentally hung up, and it was like 15 minutes of haranguing. I was like, dude, it was an accident. So kids can do it to you. You can't do it to your kids.
But Cote, I was gonna say, like, I think you're on your way to making the right parenting decision. Maybe just it takes just a little bit more of a push. Would just be to talk to your son, like when you're at home, like on just like there's no immediate need, and you just tell him it's like listen, call anytime. I'm always happy to talk to you, but when I'm out of the house and I'm traveling, your mother will make all the decisions regarding the iPad because I'm not here. I don't know. And so she will.
Yeah,
so the answer will always, when you call, and call as much as you want, but the answer for that question will always be, you'll need to ask your mother.
You're right. And in the heat of the moment, you can't set policy. I think if
right,
we learned
that's
anything
always
from
that
DevOps,
right there. I mean, I feel like, although you said it maybe in more business terms, it's like, I just think in the heat of the moment, you can't really do anything in the heat of the moment. It's always about like the pre-planning, right? It's like,
We don't want a heat of the moment. Yeah, we want like the run book already written, right?
I mean,
This
it
is how
really
it
is
goes.
true. Like the more that, and the fact that you explain what the run book is, like here's the page. You open up to more iPad time. Oh, dad's traveling. Mom determines, and it's just like, oh, because that way when they call, you just feel like, oh, we talked about it. You know how it is. I don't
Yeah.
know. You have to go talk to your mom.
You can give them everyone's favorite customer service answer that, oh, that's currently not our policy, and it's
Exactly.
the policy. I love a policy thing. Well, I don't want to go over all the VMware announcements, but there's new versions of our Tanzu application platform. I think the most notable thing is that you can run it on Red Hat OpenShift now. So you've got the toolkit for building the platform on top of there. And there's also new versions of our Tanzu Kubernetes. I always get 4 operators or something, but are basically our big Kubernetes stack. And there's also a kind of a new portfolio and kind of naming and stuff inside the portfolio, like topology. You remember topology, Brandon? You're gonna get the topology
Very
of your
well.
network. Or
Yes, I'm
your
always down for some
CNDB.
new discovery, topology. I
Oh,
love it.
yeah.
Bring it on. Yeah.
We've got that in the ARIA suite of management. And I was talking, who was I talking with? I ran into he's well, I guess he's been at IBM forever, but Phil Fritz, who came from Tivoli, an Austinite.
Yep.
And we were talking to it, and I was like, I just realized topology. I totally forgot about that. That was very exciting.
He's like, it never left.
But I think topology can always be summarized. The topology view can always be summarized this way. The demo data works fantastic, looks beautiful, seems like the most useful thing of all time. Then you point the topology to like some kind of quote unquote real data set, and it's just a nested web of lines. And you're like, ooh, not going to be that,
unless
not going to be that
right,
useful. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to go to the filter, right?
Yeah.
That's immediately starts to like, can we filter out some of these connections that we're seeing here? Some of them, it's too many local host connections or something.
To your point, I mean, I think there's 2 things you do with a topology tool. One is the ideal state, where you just want to know the state of your IT environment, whatever you're topologizing or whatever. But then I think the second one, which is an unintentional thing, is like maybe you're at a management level and you're like, everyone in IT keeps telling me things are like a mess and they're a problem. But I mean, it's just computers, whatever. But then you could use the topology tool to be like, here you go. Let me make a diagram for you of how IT actually is. And then hopefully you can start to improve from there, right? It gives you visibility into the true state of the spaghetti bowl, right? Like your managers are like, we're not eating spaghetti, we're eating prime rib over here, right? And you're like, nope, let me go take a snapshot of it. It's pure spaghetti is what we got going here. So, and also I think, anyways, so there's all sorts of new things and interesting things.
You should plug some of the streaming stuff. I didn't watch it all, but I know a lot of it was streamed. I'm assuming the videos will be up there, right? There's a bunch of stuff to watch.
Oh yeah.
So for those that missed the show, I'm sure they can see you, Kote, do some of your 20-minute interviews. And then I think your big boss, CEO, I know he gave a keynote that's out there as well, right? That's all available for viewing.
And if you want to see a lot of the videos that I and other people did, if you go, you can watch them on Twitch right now, which is like twitch.tv/VMware Tanzu. But I'm eventually going to go through the task of downloading them from Twitch and uploading them to our YouTube channel, and probably making some excerpts in podcasts. I mean, y'all know how this goes. Such great ideas. Love a great idea. Let's see if it actually happens or not. But yes, they're all available.
Don't forget to TikTok them all.
Yes. I think TikTok has a 10-minute time limit now, right? So maybe I could put some stuff in there. That would be amazing if someone watched a 10-minute like talk about anything.
I think if you did a dance to the actual like over the narration, if you did a little dance, a little TikTok dance, so like you came up with one, it would get some serious views. I think that, or what I've learned recently, just put a puppy out on your on your content, because like you could spend years making content, podcasts, talking about with insightful commentary. But let me tell you, you throw a puppy up there for about 30 seconds, that'll just crush your views. It'll crush your soul too. It's like, no, people they don't want high quality content. They want puppies. That's what people want.
That's what you do. You cut it up. You put like 24 Tanzu videos up there, and then just in the playlist you slip in a puppy, maybe another one with some dancing, and that'll the other stuff will get the traction from that.
I don't actually know that.
I
I should know
want to
the
come
answer
out
to
with
this
with
question,
a
Cote, but like,
uh-huh.
does Tanzu have a mascot? And if not, let me recommend you make it a puppy. If I was
Yeah.
just looking here to see if there's a Tanzu person.
I don't think we
Oh,
do have a
oh,
mascot. That's
what
a
is that
good
one?
good idea.
All right. Well, consider, take that to your marketing director. Say like, hey, I heard puppies do well. The Tanzu puppy. Now you'd be talking.
Yeah, I mean, look at the valuation of that Datadog company. Am I right? I mean,
Yeah.
a
So
good
so
10
yeah.
billion of that must be based on the logo.
Once you go to marketing, though, they're going to be like, we're going to have to focus group what kind of dog.
It's true, man. I'm saying like Data Lizard just
'Cause
isn't a $30 billion company. I mean,
Sneak's got a Doberman, right?
you may have finally unlocked. Like I've always wondered what made Datadog successful, and like frankly, a purple dog, or a dog surrounded by purple,
Done.
that's probably worth $10 billion right there. I'm gonna
I
just
think
roughly 1/3 of the valuation.
I'd have to go look it up, but PagerDuty's public, right? Are they still
Yeah.
private?
They're
I think
a public company.
I mean, PagerDuty might be valued less than Datadog, and I think we found why, because they don't have an animal. You gotta put an animal in there.
Let me just throw this out to your marketing. Don't leave it to them to decide. You decide right now. Shih Tzu the Tanzu, or wait, Tanzu the Shih Tzu.
Yeah, we're gonna put that one in the oven and see what comes out.
I think we're gonna let that bake a little bit. We're gonna workshop that a little bit.
Well, before we move on to the rest of the news, but yes, if I think, well, I was there, so I'm biased, but we had some fun discussions. But you can go check those out at the VMware Tanzu Twitch, and eventually I'll put it in the our YouTube channel over there. But before we close that out, based on what we discussed here, I want to make a bold statement / prediction, and that is like, I know if you go talk to your Forrester, your other B2B marketers, they're gonna give you a PDF about how to succeed with social video and TikTok, how to do some stories, things like that. But I want to suggest that if you're in our world of the B2B world, kind of infrastructure software, it's not going to work. Like, I'm just going to straight out simplify it for you and say like, nope, not for you. Don't do that. Don't worry about TikTok or Instagram or stories or anything. Basically, anything that involves swiping, not good for B2B. Not going to work out for you. Now, based on the frequency of ads I see in Instagram, maybe if you're selling like project management software, maybe. I don't know. But like, I feel like maybe for high dollar enterprise B2B sales, if you have to swipe, it's not going to work for you. So just don't do it, right? Take that budget, spend it somewhere else. That's my position on that. Now, speaking of swiping, it looks like in the back end, the swipe masters at Snap have been swiping their public cloud hosting. This is like how I swiped into that one.
Oh, swiped it. Yep.
Yes. And now I think since Matt Ray is now the master of cloud pricing and management, like what I wanted to bring up here is, now Brandon, as always, you can fill in the details that I gloss over, but it looks like they are using both Google Cloud and AWS for their hosting, right? They're living the dream and the multi-cloud there. And apparently by doing this, they have reduced their compute cost by 65%. Now I feel like, Matt Ray, I feel like 65% is a lot of percent. And
that's a good percent.
Are these the kind of results that you're seeing when you talk with people, that like really people are spending this much money and all they had to do was a multi-year, multi-cloud transformation journey to
that's all you have to do is buy into the journey. Yeah, I mean, actually it's not that unusual to see double-digit savings when you start going into like a FinOps kind of motion. Definitely there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that most people aren't appreciating. For Snap's infrastructure especially, they were built on top of Google App Engine, so a PaaS, and that has its own extra costs that a lot of people you don't care about the cost of the PaaS because you're so successful at what you're doing, but once you get to Snap scale, it kind of becomes a drag on your business, and you start looking at ways to optimize that spend. And so that's what Snap did, is they're like, Google App Engine's great, we love it, but it's expensive when you get to our scale, and everything doesn't need to fit on this platform.
And let's dig in that, because I think you're gaining not unique, but unique is nice. You're gaining, let's just say, a unique perspective on buying behavior in this space by kind of at the angle that y'all are coming at. Is
Mhm.
there a rule of thumb for after you are spending this amount of money on the infrastructure, you should not do that? I mean, I'm simplifying it, but it's sort of like the reason conceivably you would use, App Engine is, I mean, we're all familiar with these things, is because you want to focus on developer productivity and make things easier, so you're not spending a lot of time on the infrastructure side, right?
Right, right. I
But
mean, the
but
trade-off
then
is
but
yeah.
then is the analysis something like, yeah, like we're paying a 10% premium to not have to worry about this thing. So at some point that consumes some percentage of our time and revenue. It wouldn't be time. It sort of consumes this amount of our budget. So therefore it's now worth the time to have people do this instead of a service
Yeah,
do that. Like, do y'all have that
absolutely.
spreadsheet?
No, no, but I mean, what we frequently see is, you know, people are like, "Hey, we're gonna roll out onto this cloud Kubernetes," and things just kind of run away from them. They're like they're not really sure what's happening, and stuff got expensive, and then we come in and like, "Oh, did you realize that these workloads don't have any network connectivity and they're just eating up compute?" Or hey, you need to talk to your Amazon salesperson and start thinking about reserved instances, or other purchasing plans. And but but the time to start doing that is probably once you have more than one thing on there. And there was an interview with Martin Casado over on Screaming in the Cloud. It was really good. They were kind of revisiting his repatriation paper, and it wasn't. It was kind of like the sidestep of, well, I didn't really mean repatriation for everybody. I meant repatriation for people who are providing a service. So if you are,
Right.
say, a Snap, by the time that you hit any sort of scale, your internal infrastructure costs affect your profitability. So it's like a normal enterprise, they've got too many plates spinning that they can't really come back and say, well, we just need to move this all on premise because we'll save this much money. But if you're Snap
Right.
and all you have is your infrastructure costs and then your margins, whatever is everything else, well, then it makes sense to go and say, hey, could this be refactored? Could this be repatriated? Could we move to a specialty cloud? Could we break this apart to use just this part as a SaaS, and these other things go to core IaaS, or heaven forbid on-prem. And so it was a much more nuanced conversation. It is a good episode. I'm recommended because I'm just like everybody else when that hey, repatriation is the way to go. When that came out, everyone including us, took the simple view of it of, yeah, no, that's not for everybody. But if you're a Snap, it totally makes sense.
So a couple thoughts here, man. I got one, thank you for bringing up that interview. I have to say, on that interview, I will go the other way and just say, I thought Corey for once like really kind of pulled his punches. Like, listen, A16Z is a very savvy media company, right?
Well, there's
And
that
the
too.
way
Yeah.
that he walked it back, like, oh, that's not really what I meant to say. And his co-author was not on there. He said something like, I'm not so great at this analysis. She's really, really smart. She did all the work. And it's like, no, that's not what you said. You said what you said in the paper.
You said what you said.
And,
I totally agree with that.
And like, there's no walking of, and you're in a very media savvy company, right? And I think it's completely written in a way like clickbait, whatever you want to call it, provocative editorial. It's like, no. You knew what you were doing. You're a $1 billion company. You did it. Don't walk it back. You said it. You wrote it. It is what it is. It's wrong. Okay, so let me just get that out there.
Well,
right?
yes.
And for once, like I thought Corey's like I thought he was going to take him to task. It was more like, welcome to the show. It's just super nice, Corey. I was for once I was like ready for the snark, and I think he really backed away from it. So putting that out on the table, I'll go listen to the interview now. Go decide for yourself. That's just my 2 cents.
I let him have his walk back, and his walk back made sense. But also in the back of my head, though, I was like, how many of these companies that you keep mentioning are you an investor in?
Well, that too. It's like, what? Did you not read it before you posted it? Did no one read this before I posted it? And now I'm going to walk it back. Oh, it's more nuanced. Is that what the title said? Is that what the headline said? No, it was, I don't know. I didn't buy any of that. And also, I just don't buy, like, like, again, I've said all I should say on that. So we'll leave that there. Now on the Snap one, though, I could go on, of course. But on the Snap, I do think the part that's really interesting is like the scale, because I think the question is like, where does the scale get to the point that you ought to look at kind of this multi-cloud situation? So the one like kind of interesting thing they threw out is from a quantitative standpoint was Snapchat now has, quote, 347 million daily active users who send billions of short videos, which they call it snaps, right? So it's like, of course, like that's sort of like, this is expert level, right? This is like, one of the, I don't know, probably 10, 20 biggest sites on the web. So it's like, for sure, it makes sense for this level of company to like go out and invest in kind of, lots of different ways to reduce costs because of the scale. I think the part that is interesting, that would be really interesting, I don't know if I'll ever publish it, was like, where did the load on Google App Engine get to be too much, right? And then where did it, or either because it was too much or because he alludes to both. It was both costly and it kind of like, it was hard to scale. It kind of refers to it as like got just too monolithic. That would be actually really helpful if someone posted that and said, well, here's the level, like at however you want to call it, this many users or this many requests. Now's the point to get off Google App Engine, because they tell the story of like, decomposing into microservices. We've heard it before, but it's a really well told story. It's like, it totally makes sense. Like, okay, yeah, we got really big. You are successful. Now decompose into microservices. Now spend some time on multi-cloud. But it's just like, where was that line? And I guess that's what I think everybody in the industry to some degree is kind of trying to figure out, right? And every company is a little bit different. Everybody's workloads are going to be a little bit different, but that's the kind of thing that I think that I talk to customers all the time. Like, we try to guide them, like, well, at this point, try this, at this point, try this. Or like, if you're anticipating this massive growth, maybe you invest in it. But of course, there's always the trap, right? Maybe the growth doesn't come. And like, frankly, maybe Google App Engine was good enough, or an equivalent, solution from another cloud vendor.
You would need like 3 or 4 more cases like this. And like all these things, it wouldn't be like scientific, whatever that means. But like, I mean, we all three read that Working Backwards book, right? There's the section going over when they broke up the monolith. And I feel like that was in like 2004 or 5. Like, I don't know when it was, but
right. And this is Amazon we're talking, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was maybe like 10 years into like the platform, and not only like 10 years, but another way of approaching it might be like not only length of time and cost, but number of businesses that you're running, right? Because I think that was the issue that they had, if I remember that book, is that like, well, if we just wanted to keep doing the same thing forever, it'd be totally cool. But like, we have these new businesses that we want to bring on, and new ways we want to run our book selling and retail business. And we just, we've got legacy stuff and tech debt stuff. But there must be but you could kind of do a rough, like, here's 5 examples of a company that had to kind of rewrite its middleware down to infrastructure layer. And then the practical part would be like, how did they decide to finally do it? Because I mean, every single week, everyone's always like, I don't know, we're making we're acting kind of fast and loose here. This thing's still holding together. But at some point, you actually get to make the decision to, shut down the train and redo things. Boy, there's a lot of metaphors and analogies.
Now, I do think the other thing in this article that they hit on, I thought was interesting, was sort of when they went multi-cloud, and maybe this is sort of stating the obvious, but like I didn't see it written like this, is, they basically came out with 3, if you will, tiers of things. So, okay, and it's really between Google and AWS. And the person they brought in to kind of help them do this was from AWS. So no surprise, right? AWS and GCP, I guess in this case, is yours left out. But the way that he described their approach is like, the first thing they do is they look at a service that they just declare as cloud agnostic. So I think that would basically be, like the, any of the servers basically running compute, right? They just kind of view that as completely agnostic. You can move it anywhere you want. And then, so that makes sense. And then the second one was, they call like quote unquote mixed things, where it's mostly the same, but it takes a little bit more work to switch between service at Google and a service at AWS. So those are the two that they're actually kind of moving around, it sounds like. And then the third one was just basically, it's just unique to that one specific provider. So kind of going through as it sounds like as they kind of rewrote all of these services, they kind of have them in kind of these buckets, right? So I guess you kind of know you're probably going to get a lot more cost savings at the cloud agnostic service, right? But it may take you a little bit more effort to make it cloud agnostic, or it needs to be simpler. And then as you kind of go up, you're going to be more and more tied into a specific provider. But I like that. I mean, but it did describe, just reading it though, was like, wow, this probably took a long time. If you had to go through all these different services and like all the comparisons and the spreadsheets, and then who declares something agnostic versus something a little bit mixed versus something exclusive, like that seemed like it would be a lot of work. But if you got to that point, it would make sense, that you'd have like a really nice way to do it.
Is you would need a topology tool. Discover
probably one of many tools.
Spaghetti bowl. Yeah,
there are definitely a lot of tools. Some burn down charts.
So let me, also part of it is that apparently, what is it? Every year they have like a cost camp where they have developers and I assume other people.
We got to get Matt Ray's opinion on this, because this seemed to be like somebody took the idea of a hackathon. Is like, what we need to have here? Everybody get together. We need to have a cost camp, and everyone shows up with their best way to save money. And it's like, I was like, this was maybe the only line in the thing where I was like, when they declare it's cost camp, is that like the weekend everyone takes vacation? They're like, I don't really want to like, do I have to be here for this?
You wait to hear where cost camp is. Right.
Oh yes. I think that's accurate.
But have you ever heard of this, Matt? Like, you would seem like somebody. Is our companies like have any of your companies ever been like, yeah, we do some type of consolidated look at cutting costs, called something like a cost camp?
Because I'm now dabbling in the FinOps space, I hear about this. It's not that different, but like your various organizations inside larger organizations, there might be the engineering offsite or the product offsite or the marketing offsite. And this is just continuing that vein of, hey, let's bring in people from various teams who have some thoughts on this. It's probably not going to be your whole company coming out and, hey, let's talk about how we save some money. It's probably, people with direct understanding of the architecture and the budget. So you're bringing, those people together, possibly for an offsite. Most companies have to do offsites because we're all distributed now. But it doesn't sound, it sounds weird until like you start realizing that somebody like Snap is probably spending $1 million a month on cloud.
I think to your point, Matt Ray, the bummer about a cost camp would be too ironic to go to an expensive place. So you would really have to hold that offsite at like at a budget low cost place. Otherwise, I feel like the mindset,
cost camp at the Denver Airport Hotel. Yes.
Oh,
yeah, maybe it's just
nice.
the name.
Yes.
Just the name cost camp. Like, I don't know. I get the idea, like cost reductions, annual planning, whatever. I was like, I don't know. The camp metaphor was maybe just a bridge too far for me on that.
It's the opposite of the sales kickoff. It's a savings kickoff.
All right. So here's the to kind of up level it, as it were, as I like to do. Here's the question I had in my mind for discussion. And that is we can choose one of these two options as far as how one thinks about and markets and kind of approaches this infrastructure enterprise software stuff. Nowadays, like cloud stuff and Kubernetes and platforms, like, is it the case either that one, you should always lead with lowering costs? Like, that's always your number one thing that you're going to talk about and it matters. Or is it the case that two, early on in the market, you need to talk about differentiation, features, that it actually works, that it like provides what you want and that can be made to work. And then maybe cost is a secondary thing. And then as things go on and it commoditizes, then you can talk about cost. Like what are we, obviously, well, all three of us are biased because we want you to buy stuff from our company. So we would not like to talk about cost. Like that's always a bad kind of a not the best way to go forward. But like, I don't know, in the same way that like, I think we should just stop B2B marketing in like, TikTok for Kubernetes. Like we don't really need that. It's not doing anything. Like maybe should we all just start talking about like, lowered costs for things? Is that what the people want who are buying this stuff?
Well, in the show notes, we linked to an article from David Linthicum over at InfoWorld, Give FinOps a Say Over Cloud Architecture Decisions. And this actually makes a lot of sense, because one of the things that happens is, for advanced cloud financial people, your Corey Quinns and the like, they can probably look at a cloud bill and tell you what the architecture looks like. And just because there were patterns that emerge from the services you use, the things you, and efficient or not, that comes out. And the reason I bring this up is you probably want someone who understands the financial side of cloud computing, to at least, have a voice at the table to say, like, look, you think you're going to do this model, but it's going to be very expensive, and our cost per unit is it's going to be hard to manage if you go down that path. And a lot of engineering doesn't really want to hear that, because but it is something that, like, your product and your architect folks should have an understanding of what they're getting into. Because yes, some things might be quick to write, Google App Engine, and once you hit any sort of scale, you're like, oh crud, we thought this was going to work forever, and not necessarily that the service is going to, like, run into growing pains, like Google App Engine, but it's going to just become too expensive, and you're going to have to refactor later. So if you keep an eye on that, technical debt, as a financial thing, well, maybe you can cut it off before it gets too bad.
Yeah, I guess, as long-term listeners will know, I never remember what this is called, but you want that chart where your costs don't go up per unit of success. Like, you want it to kind of level off at some point. And is that a marginal something? Like,
you want fixed marginal cost, right? Or basically, it's a point. And I think, but I think in the case of Snapchat, I mean, there's a book, we probably talked about it when it came out. It's How to Turn $1 Billion, How to Turn Down $1 Billion, the Snapchat story. So you can go read that. It's pretty good. It tells that story like a lot of these books. And so I think if you kind of like put it through this lens, it's like, this is like, to me, Snapchat like executed, the strategy perfectly. It's like, you build a great mobile app, get the back end to work as quickly as possible. In this case, they use Google App Engine, achieve product market fit, where they basically got, millions of users. They built in some type of advertising model, get the money going. And at that point, right, it's like, once you've done all that, it's like, now you start to bring in the infrastructure experts, right? Like from AWS and others, and, the engineering talent to come through. And I think Twitter kind of, to some extent, kind of did the same thing. We go back to the fail well days. And then it's like, okay, now we got to really make it run more cost efficiently as well as more scalable. And it's like, but I think, 9 times out of, I'd actually say 10 times out of 10, I think you'd always take a company with like product market fit and like a really large user base and go fix the technical problems versus like, okay, let's engineer it up front and run it really cheaply. And then, hope that all the users show up. So I think in the case of Snap, they did it perfectly.
Well, and a lot of these re-architecturing happens once these companies are public and people start looking at their infrastructure or their costs and their filings, and they're like, you guys are spending a lot of money on XYZ services, and if you can squeeze out 2% here, it's going to nudge the stock price up here.
Right? Mm-hmm.
And once you have kind of that focus from the public eye over your costs, this happens.
I guess, and this is the other end of pre-IPO is the PE gym, and I think in both those cases the conclusion is that like growth is best done in the shadows. Like you want to like build up the company and the valuation and the growth, but you don't really want people investigating how you're doing that until you can kind of like level off and start optimizing the cost for things.
And we should go back to what you said, Cote, earlier. I mean, AWS is probably the best example of this, right? They're the famous memo, right? Or whatever, Bezos said, hey, there's only going to be APIs, and kind of re-architecting, what became Amazon.com. And then that was the genesis of AWS. So it's like, that's probably the most profitable reorganization rearchitecture of all time. It spun off another business that's like approaching $100 billion in revenue. Like who's going to do that again? I mean, it's phenomenal.
Mm. Well, speaking of spinning off other businesses, spinning off and headwinds and tailwinds, just coincidentally through a newsletter I subscribe to that is now owned by the Atlantic, there was a little what would you call it, a little rant about business speak, and I think you can go look it up in the show notes, which are available at softwaredefinedtalk.com/375. Get a link to it, and it goes over somehow. I forget the story of how the writer. It's the Galaxy Brain newsletter, by the way, which is kind of fun. And he downloaded a McKinsey thing about the metaverse. That would make sense. Like why like a mainstream journalist would be interested in it, because it would be a metaverse. And I think it was like I didn't actually go read the paper, so we're going to talk about it for a little while. But it was kind of like the B2B consulting write-up of the metaverse, how a company can do well in the metaverse. And the complaint of the Galaxy Brain guy was that it was all just vacuous jargon that meant something that didn't mean anything. And I know I don't know him, but I know of this Brian Solis, who wrote it. I followed him over the years. I used to be in this pseudo community news list thing called the Enterprise Irregulars, and I think he scurried around in there every now and then. And I was reading some of the excerpts, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I know this isn't jargon, but I kind of sort of know exactly what they're saying here, right? Like the thing that was being pointed out is like that he keeps talking about value and achieving value, and it's like, yeah, that's just a good way of saying money, right? Like, it's whenever you hear in business jargon that you want to achieve value with something, that means the equally unhelpful thing of achieve what your corporate strategy goals are. But chances are your corporate strategy goals are make more money, right? Like that you will actually have a tangible, like, here we go, business outcome from any sort of endeavor that you're doing. Otherwise, there's no value in it. And I'm sure, and I read a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff can be jargon more. But I think long ago, during the the fondly remembered software-defined talk exegesis episode, we did hit on several times that, like, sometimes this is not for you, right? Like this press release, it may seem like a load of crap, but that's because it's not for you. Like, I'm sure if I went to go read about how things were going in one of my favorite industries, to know nothing about cardboard manufacturing, and I read some thought leadership in there, I would be like, this sounds like I just want some shit delivered to me. Like, that's all I want.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, my take on it was, maybe they're just using these words to wrap something that's not there, right? They're like, this is just wrapping bullshit with bullshit.
Right.
And
now that is a more valid thing. Like I said, I haven't read this paper, but I will reflect on other PDFs I have read. I have nothing to say about this one because I haven't done the work. But it is true that there are many of these kind of PDFs you read, and if you can read through the is cant the right word? Like because you would think if you were like a thief in Dungeons and Dragons, you could speak thieves' cant, right? And it always seemed like, well, why doesn't everyone else learn that? Like, I don't know, but
they can't be bothered.
Yeah, I mean, especially you got some fucking wizards with 18 intelligence, just like throw some thieves' cant in there, no problem. But there are many of these papers where, my thing is always like, I'm not so interested in you identifying a problem or potential as telling me how I'm going to get quote unquote value out of it. Like, what am I actually going to do to achieve value from it? And I think maybe that's the reason, like, if you're talking about the metaverse or all these things, it's kind of difficult, is maybe the conclusion that all of the gibberish can't talk like this needs to get to is like, like I've been trying to jokingly do here, is to kind of stridently be like, yeah, there's nothing there for you there. We'll check in on this 3 years. Don't worry about it. No value in the metaverse, right? I mean, that would be, can you imagine if like a McKinsey or a Bain came out with a PDF and it was basically like, nope, not good. Don't invest in the Bitcoin, or like, nope, the metaverse, don't bother. Nope, don't do it. Just like work on some cost optimization.
Yeah, well, they can't do that because then they have to spend the remainder of time defending why you shouldn't be doing this thing that everyone else is talking about.
Yeah, I saw maybe you got your McKinsey, your Bain, and what's the other one? I forget the third one. But one of them should just start being like the Nope House, and they'll just come in and basically, if there's a new trend or a technology, their default position will be to not do it, and until it's kind of proven out that it's worthwhile, that there is quote unquote value in it. They'll just kind of be like, I don't know, why don't you let your competitors figure out if that works or not? And if it does,
yeah,
do that.
it could be, Nope House, aka the fast follower, right?
And
And just be like,
I think
wait for
there
it to
would
prove
be,
itself.
I think maybe, we're kind of workshopping this here. I think there is a position paper to be had. And I don't want to say that the value of this might be the 2x2 dog star quadrant thing, which was, I think, maybe probably the most important business most important innovation in management consulting ever. Use of the 2x2 to prioritize and sort how to do things. Maybe previous to that was the realization I think the Bain people had, that their job was to increase share price. I mean, we kind of take that for granted for now, but think back to maybe like the early 1960s and just imagine that your pitch is like, I'm not going to help you run your business better or make more money. I'm going to help you increase your share price. I mean, that's a total like mind screw there from Taylorism and Fordism and stuff like that. But anyways, we should develop some theory that's basically like the meandering follower is typically the most successful in achieving the most market share, right? So I think you got Microsoft, you got Apple. I don't know the other ones, but basically those companies very rarely come out as the first person doing some highly innovative new thing. And in fact, they almost let the so-called marketplace just kind of mess around with new ideas and kind of see what works. And then they come in and they do it in a better way. So maybe we've got this whole innovate first thing a little mixed up. Is like, instead you want to be kind of like, I think even fast is too slow. I don't know if any of this is true. This is why we're workshopping it. But you just need to be like, sort of average rate follower is what you want to do.
But the problem with being a fast follower is you're just ahead of the also rans, right? So, you have to make sure that you don't fall back into the pack, and then you're like, yo, I hear you guys like public cloud. And it's like, oh, dude, you're $10 billion too late to get in, So,
Yeah,
so they have to nudge you. They have to nudge you into the what's the
now I feel like I'm setting myself up to contradict one of my I spent probably 90 minutes, if not more, today on this problem. Now, what I am setting myself up to is that next time I have some beefs with transferring money in America, someone's just going to replay this to me and be like, nope, that's what they should do. America is the average follower. They're waiting for Europe and everyone else to figure this out. And once it gets nailed, they're going to bring it back. So this is the natural way things need to evolve.
I like that. But back kind of in this article, I think the one thing that that really stood out to me and kind of embedded in it was just the nature of, like he says, tangible in there. And I think that is a good way to grade any of these things. It's like, can somebody if you're doing thought leadership, if you're pitching a company, if you're explaining a product, can someone give you a very simple and succinct, tangible example of how this product, movement, or whatever will help you, save money, improve performance, whatever it is you're trying to do? And I think when you find things that don't do that, right, I think there's a reason, I think there's a good reason to start asking questions. Like, why did this McKinsey paper, after all this writing, kind of leave the reader wanting with any type of tangible thing, right? And I think it kind of alludes to a little bit, crypto is in that category now. And I think even in our own jobs, right, there's always a good list of weasel words you can find on the internet, easy to use, better performance, all those kinds of things. And usually an editor or just somebody that just gives you a writing tip will say hey, replace all these things with an actual statistic, right? Don't say it's easy to use. Say it's 5 times faster to do X, right? And if you can't, then maybe you don't have it. Or don't say next generation, actually say the thing that what it is. It's and it teleports you from X to Y, whatever your specific thing is. And if you can't do that,
paper I want to read, teleportation technology, is there value in it?
Right, but that's the whole point. And if you can't say that kind of stuff and you find yourself with a lot of weasel words and a lot of potential futuristic use cases that aren't tangible, then you probably don't have thought leadership. You probably just have a poorly written position paper on nothing.
Okay, so I think that's another tenet of the Nope House. And again, I'm just throwing this idea out to the big consultancy firms. Maybe we'll put this as this might be a wing of the software defined talk value management hedge fund system, which is slowly octopusing out in all sorts of lines of business, which is great. I mean, that's the great Warren Buffett seems to have followed that model. So I think we can. Now, I haven't checked the numbers, Brandon, but I think just like Warren Buffett started with a little insurance company, I think we could start with our ad revenue, right? And
I like it. Yeah. No,
I don't know.
Call it. I don't know. Let's just call it tangible consulting, right? We'll come in, bring it in, and like,
tangible consulting.
And then what comes out is like, okay, here's what it is. Because I think the reason people don't do that, because like Zuckerberg, for many of his faults, like he is putting together things that are tangible. Now, what happens though is he shows it to people and they make fun of it, right? They're like, "Whoa, did you just see this crazy meeting? Like people are dancing inside of a metaverse with a headset on," and that's that's the issue, right? And that's why like McKinsey, that's why people don't want to do it. It's like in the case of Zuckerberg, I think he just frankly doesn't care, he believes or whatever, for whatever reason. But like he's putting stuff on, you can go get an Oculus Quest, you can go like try it out. Now you may decide you don't want it and you may decide it's not good, but like it's at least tangible. Whereas, like many other people are riding the fence here. Like McKinsey's just like, one day we're all going to be in the metaverse and it's going to be great and it's going to be easier and faster and simpler, but they won't, they don't want to be made fun of, right? They don't want, or they're not willing to go to that next level to say, okay, 90% of business meetings will be in the metaverse in 5 years and we guarantee it's going to happen. And this is why. Right, because that's that would be something you'd be like, okay, let me see it.
We've encountered this many times over our careers, right? And I think what you have to smell out is that when you are going on a thought leadership suicide mission, right? And so like given the metaverse, you should be able to smell around that and be like, this is not going to turn out well for me, right? Like no matter what I sort of like think up or how I write it, there really is nothing here at the moment. And the difficult thing is, as you just pointed out, there actually are things there, but it's very unclear if they need to be there, let alone if they were there, like what you would do with it, right? So you could pick, like an easy obvious thing would be like, I don't know, people are going to buy stuff in the metaverse, right? But like, sure. Like that's nothing interesting that might happen versus like trying to cook up like I'll have to go read the paper. Now I'm intrigued, but it's the same thing where like early on with big data, I think the podcast might be this old that we still had these conversations, but we would just kind of be like, seems cool, but like really, what are we going to do with that? Right.
But you could write, I mean, to make it more constructive, right? Because I do think, one thing I do feel bad for the writer of this paper is like, I would hate if somebody from the Atlantic just took something I wrote and was just like, let me explain to you why this is so bad. It would be like, well, that would be a pretty rough day. But nonetheless, putting that aside, it's like, there is a place where, he could have done it was just to say, it's like, something like this, like checking in on the metaverse, what's real, what's reality, something like that. And then you could go through and just constructively say, it's like, well, we're, here are the 5 most common things that are described, and many of them are not really being, utilized, or they have significant limitations, right? But it's worthwhile. But then you would say something like, but here are the 5 things I would watch. And then at the end, you could always just have some kind of blue sky paragraph. It's like, we never know what's going to come of these things. Sometimes like, you don't see it coming. So it's always worth keeping, it's always worth just watching, if nothing else, so that you kind of stay educated and see, to Matt's earlier point, like you see a trend before it's everywhere. And it's like, fair enough, right? That would be like a reasonable take on it.
And I guess we haven't sort of like checked this area of the intellectual business airport bookie kind of thing, but it's almost like the halo effect. It doesn't really fit in this, but it's kind of adjacent to that. What you want to do when you're kind of exploring and discovering new things in the businessy world is come up with a model that you apply. Like you want a set of criteria and exit gates, experiments that you can run. And then that's kind of the height of how you kind of navigate weird, confusing stuff. But developing that model is more important than developing a conclusion. and then honing that model and sharpening it over time. Which that's often I try to ask people that question a lot, like how would you know when something happens, or how are you modeling it in your head? For things that have no answer, you can just kind of feel around in the darkness.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a space for the contrarian consulting shop to come and just pour cold water over any of these projects. You know, you're like, look, I want to bring in tangible consulting, and have them tell me why we're not going to invest in metaverse this year. And you know what?
Yeah.
But I think somebody protective of a budget would go for that. Somebody who's looking for, you know,
isn't that what you're
asterisk.
screaming at the cloud guy does? That's his whole shtick, right?
But I do think this is where I think that's kind of the central thesis of that article is like, hey, you know, should it be a contrarian take to require tangible examples, or should that just be like, if you put something out, right, and you're sort of like, you know, kind of advertising it as the next biggest thing, like, is it unreasonable to say like you need to have some tangible examples? And if you don't, is it unreasonable to like criticize that, right? Because that seems to be where we are today. Like so many of these ideas is like you criticize it, and then you get the Gandhi quote back from the person that's being criticized, like, oh, first they laugh at you, and it's like, wait a minute, like I don't understand. Like I just like you said something that didn't have any real examples. I asked her for some examples, and now I'm like not on the team. Like now you're gonna attack me. It's like that seems to be like the level of discourse of a lot of ideas right at this minute.
And I feel like the incentives aren't aligned for McKinsey and the like to be negative on things, because you know what, if you tell the customer that metaverse is a fad, you're cutting off your metaverse consulting people.
Yeah, well, okay.
Well, I mean, maybe so, right? That may be the point.
So speaking of tangible outcomes, I think we got the Nope House consultancy, and I think our logo is going to be a cold shower. That's kind of like we've got some branding. I don't know how you indicate a cold shower visually.
A bucket of cold water, a bucket with an ice cube floating in it.
But you know, for if you do enjoy warm showers and you want something tangible, how could someone get something tangible from us, Brandon?
Well, they could send their postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send them a physical sticker anywhere in the world. And they can fix it to really anything they want, to their laptop, their bikes, their Yeti cups, or one of the many, many other things I haven't listed there. So please go ahead and send us all the requests, because I love sending stickers to people. Also, real quick here, I want to thank everybody who came out to the Software Defined Talk meetup. I think it was a rousing success. Cote and I were down here at the Pine House in Austin. We had some good pizza. We had some beers. We saw many people here in Austin. I think, I don't know, I'm going to put the total attendance around 15. I didn't count exactly, you know, and
Sure.
We had a few no-shows, and we had a few people show up that we didn't know were coming. So it was great to see everyone. And one quick shout out from this, I was going to recommend, since it's VMware, so I'm talking VMware, one of your coworkers there, Cote, Whitney, and she has a site called Enlightening, and I'll have a link here to it. So you can, she does these cool things on, what's it called? Like a light board, where like someone talks and she takes these cool notes. It's like, it's just different. I think it's different. I think it's kind of cool. So if you want to see what that's all about, check the show notes and go check out Whitney's site. Again, that's Enlightening.
Yeah. Her show is great. She's been doing it for like a year now, and it's good stuff. It's really fun watching. I wholeheartedly recommend that as well. Well, there's one less conference now that we usually recommend, and that's the one I'm at right now. I guess you could come to tomorrow, or I think they're having the big old party tonight. I'm sure that's going to be awesome. So we don't have that one going on. However, there's also DevOps now. Matt Ray, is it DevOps Talks?
Yes.
Is that a DevOps Days?
Yes.
Or what is that?
No, it's a separate conference. DevOps Talks, Sydney. Do
we already have some brand subversion here that just didn't want to?
Yeah, I mean it's like a regional thing. It's not like a community conference. It's profitable. The organizer gave me
this is like a GPL v3 issue we've got going on here. That's too bad. Anyways,
it's a good conference. The organizer gave me a pass to come and drop in, and I've spoken at them before and been at them. So if you're in Sydney and you want to drop in for a day or two, there's going to be some good talks, and check it out.
I wish I was going there. And then also, there's a FinOps meetup October 13th.
Yeah, that one's
where you'll be
virtual. That's
presenting
going to be
Matt Ray.
me. That's going to be me talking about Kubernetes and cloud costs.
Yeah. Now I know you've locked down your presentation by this point, so maybe next episode you can give us a summary of it.
I did have to submit an outline, so I vaguely have an outline of what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. Item 1 on the outline: computers. Item 2: more computers. I think is the
slides.
Good outline. And then there's also KubeCon North America coming up in Detroit. We're a media sponsor of them, so they're being very nice about things that we have and are doing there. So I've actually, as you can imagine, talked with many people about that. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun there. Then, of course, you have my favorite conference, Spring One Platform, December 6th and 8th. I actually have a discount code this episode, and the discount code is COTE200. That's spelled COTE 200. Now, Brandon, how much money do you think that code will get you off registration?
I would guess $200.
That's right. The college degrees.
Fantastic.
Not a trick question.
All right, I thought like you did hesitate on me. I was like, it's coming. The square root of some kind of complicated formulas gives you 200. But no, I'm glad that's great. $200 off. That's right. A pretty good deal. That's a nice little discount.
So y'all should come to that. It'll be fun. And then there's still, I think there is still a open call for papers for that conference in Texas on January. So got a lot going on there. Now with that, Matt Ray, what do you have to recommend this week?
So my recommendations this week, I've got a pair of them. The first is I'm going to be running the Festival of Feet half marathon this weekend, and I had to recommend it just for the name. I mean, Festival of Feet. That's pretty awesome. But my other recommendation is BirdNet Pi. This is a project where if you have a Raspberry Pi 3 or faster, and you put a microphone on it, you can let it go and listen to the birds outside, and it uses machine learning to identify the birds. You hook it up to Flickr, it puts photos of them. It's kind of awesome. There's about 15 to 20 birds species in my area that have been identified. And so now I'm like walking around, I'm like, oh, that's a pied currawong, or, oh, that's a sulfur crested cockatoo. I'm learning. It's kind of awesome.
Kate, you're on mute.
Were you saying it's a pie worm horn?
Hold on. give me the whole pickup again so I can get it real clean. Go ahead.
Were you saying it's a pie worm horn?
A currawong, but sure. Maybe it'll find a worm hong.
Very good. How about yourself, Brandon? What do you have to recommend this week?
And I'm so blown away by that last recommendation. Every time Matt Ray, like he goes to another, they're like, I think we're at the basement. He goes to another level. He just goes like, he takes the Raspberry Pi like to a new level, like bird watching,
it's cool.
Bird listening with Raspberry Pi. That is the new floor. I look forward to Matt Ray taking us somewhere else in the future. Matt, listen, I say it as a friend. I love it. It's just crazy. But anyway, good to hear about it. I'm going to recommend something very simple. This was an Apple TV Plus show. It's called Blackbird. It was on, I think it started a few months ago. So it's been out for a while. So it's all out there. You can watch, you can binge it. It's just a nice solid, like little crime thriller thing. It was based on a true story. So it was a fun watch. I think it's like 6 episodes. It's kind of like that perfect, maybe if you're traveling overseas, you have a long flight, or you're just looking for something that's just kind of fun to watch, a little dark, but like I think very captivating. So check out Blackbird on Apple TV Plus.
Well, I hope I haven't recommended this thing, because I have had it for a while. But I over this 2-week trip, which I have to say, next time I mention this casually to you two, you should be like, Cote, don't take a 2-week trip. You always don't like that. I do not recommend it. So let's remember that for next time. But I have been using the ArcDock 120W. I won't read the full Amazon thing, but it's like this little cube that has 2 USB-C ports and 2 USB ports, like normal ones. And you plug it into the wall, and it's basically good enough to like run laptop charging, right? Now, so that it's like a power brick, except it's kind of like a power brick I wouldn't say it fits in the palm of your hand, but if you kind of chopped, you know how your fingers have 3 joints. If you chop the top joint off your finger, it's about from palm to like the second, what you'd have left of the hand. It's very heavy, but it's great because you roll around. You got 4 ports you can plug things into. Sometimes you have that iPhone charging cable. It's a stupid USB-C one that they give with everything. And you're like, this is useless to me. No problem. You got 2 USB-C ports, or you have the regular one. So that part's good. But here's the thing, and maybe you'll appreciate this, Matt Ray, is I don't know the name of this kind of cord, but it has a cord that comes out of it, that's detachable, which seems annoying at first. But here's the insight that I had. It's one of these standard cords, like IKEA sells these cords that have like the 2 holes at the end of it and like the divot on either side. I'm sure the nerds out there know what this is. They're like, oh, that's the Wim Gobley 97 standard ISO 22 or whatever.
It is a standard, I'm sure. Yeah.
But what you do is you buy each of those cords for the countries you want to operate it in. So I have a US cord and then I have a Europe cord. And so what I do is whenever I'm in either place, you just use that cord. And that right there, that's what I love. Now, you're still going to want to bring a small USB adapter for whatever country you're going to, as I have found out on this trip, because you're going to want that. But still, I think embracing the detachable cord that they always hide from the pictures is actually going to help you in this instance. Do you do that, Matt Ray? You have the multiple cords?
I do.
Maybe I learned that from you. Who knows? Well, speaking of things that you forget where you've learned it from, hopefully you have learned a lot in this episode of Software Defined Talk. It's episode 375. So if you want to remember where you learned these things, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/375. There's also several things that we talked about which you can't forget that you've learned because we have forgotten to mention them, that you can dig into there as well. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
All right, Matt, I think you're going to have to send me some audio of the birds.
I was just looking. I'm trying to figure out how to get the MP3s out.
You need to fire up the old audio hijack. Give us some clips, we can make
I mean, the pages in BirdNet Pi say like, here's the file name is Pied Currawong, 220901 BirdNet 62025 AM .mp3.
BirdNet. I'm on BirdNet.
Yeah, so,
I don't know. I got to figure out. What did you just say? Are you just going to be taking notes when you said all that? Like what?
No. Do you are you going to put on the? Do you want to just put it on the podcast, like in the after?
Yeah, whatever. Like I don't know.
Do you want?
If you got audio,
do you want
for weird audio?
Cockatoos? What kind of stuff do you need?
Listen, I leave it to you. I can't. I have no idea what I would want. Send me some of the bird sounds, and I'll
Australian ravens.
Put it in there. We already have. Maybe I'll play the because I do have a good sting of you like doing your little bird call like you just did there. So maybe I'll play yours and then I'll play the real ones and be like, which is
that's
which.
What I was gonna say is don't send separate things so Brandon gets extra work, but just send one audio file where you're like, and this is my mockingbird, and you can go, and then you'll say, and this is the actual.
Yeah, send me the best stuff. Pick out the one that you think is the best.
I'll just send you. I'll send you like a.
I like this. I also like Cote pasting in like maybe the longest description of all time in the recommendations. Like,
do I have kookaburras?
I dare someone to read that entire thing. Wow, Thundercord. Wow, look at that thing.
So these are C7 chords. I love the C7. Those are good chords. Now that I've discovered that.
ArcDoc 125. I mean, there are. I'm gonna have to get out. I'm gonna have to use some of my new Jupyter skills to parse this sentence to see how many different USB types are in there. BD, USB A, USB 4, Thunderbolt 4. Love it. All right, gentlemen. I think we're done for today. So hey, thanks to all the streamers for hanging in here. For the streamers that showed up in Austin, thanks a lot. For those of you not in Austin, Matt Ray is going to be in Detroit at the KubeCon. Maybe Matt Ray will do a little event. Maybe he'll take you out. We did, man. I did talk to CFO. We covered a lot of the dinner. I don't know exactly how much, but it was well within our budget. So I think
Good,
I think everybody was happy with it. So
Yeah, I think it was a high value engagement. Basically.
so I will go ahead. I will submit a request for approval to cover some expenses in Detroit. If all goes well, we'll get approval from the CFO, and you can
All
spend
right.
some money on some people. Now you will have to like invite them somewhere, so that part is on you.
We'll do that.
That will take probably some effort. So
also, it needs to be on an Amex.
that's right. Well, because that's right. Because we work with Concur, and Concur only works with Amex, so it's like that's how it works. So all right. Thanks, everyone on the streaming side. So we'll see you next week at probably a different day and a different time, but it'll still be good. When we show up, just watch the Slack. That's how you'll know. All right. Bye-bye.